Okay. Okay.
Okay, can you put me before your name so I don't misspell when I pronounce it?
Okay. So my name is Paul Okumu,
Uh-huh.
and I work with the Africa platform.
Great. Welcome, Paul Okumu. Welcome everybody to the Global Festival of Ideas. We are on the live stream and we are very happy to have you here. And I have the honor actually to interview you today. So one of the questions I would like to make to you is to tell us a little bit about your experience in the African region regarding great and innovating practices for the 2030 Agenda implementation.
Okay. I mean, I think this is very exciting time for the African continent. And I know that for a long time we have had some people talking about Africa rising. But right now the African citizens are talking about Africans rising, not just the continent, but the people. And it's extremely exciting right now. I am looking at great innovations happening around data, for example. Yes. I come from Nairobi, and Nairobi right now has got the highest financial transaction that is being done through data, through mobile phones, and the young people are the ones who are driving that. I have seen a lot of campaigns being run on the SDG, and those campaigns are being driven by mobile phones, mobile technology. There are organizations who are running a campaign called Making All Voices Count. And what they're doing is that they're collecting data, harnessing data from Facebook, data from Twitter, data from other sources on the internet, collecting it together and using it to challenge governments. Using it to challenge governments on its policies. In Tanzania, I have seen a campaign called Twaweza. Twaweza is a Swahili word. Swahili is one of the languages in Africa, in East Africa. And what they're doing with Twaweza is that these are people in schools, and they've got small little mobile phones with them in the classroom. And every day, they are able to say which teacher was in the classroom, which teacher showed up, how was the lesson, and that information is relayed instantly to the people in government. Right. And so after a while, the people in government are able to say, hey, we have not had a teacher in this classroom for the last 3 days. What is happening? And they're able to intervene. Those are things we never used to have before, and those are things that older generations like ours probably do not think about.
Do you think that this kind of data collection by citizens and civil society organizations ensure in the future the sustainability or a sustainable process in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda?
I think it does, because for a long time, the scientific community and the governments and the donors kept us stuck in one form of data, that it had to be scientific data, it had to be scientific data. And every time you took data, it took 10 years to gather it, it took another 5 years to analyze it, and then you had to go through the politics of which data do you communicate, which one do you not communicate. The citizens don't need that anymore. All that they need is to collect whatever the data on their own. And so for me, I am thinking that the new wave of data collection, the new wave of citizens generating their own data, is in fact much more impactful, it's much more instant, and has got a much more sustainable value. I am not in any way downplaying the normal official data that governments are used to, but we need to harness the data that exists, because this is data that is real time. You don't need 10 years to collect it. You don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. All that you need to do is to have access to a mobile phone. And for me, there is nothing that is more sustainable in implementing the SDGs than the ability of the citizens and the young generation especially to constantly give feedback to their government on what they're feeling and what they want. If you go to the OECD countries, for example, they've got the better living index. It's called the Better Life Index. And it is an instant. The governments can easily know at any given moment what their citizens are looking for and what their citizens want.
I think that is also very important if governments want to interrelate their policies with people's priorities. And I think that it's quite important. So the next question will be, what are your advices from the work you have been doing and in the African region for other regions, for other continents around the world? What are your advices regarding maybe the challenges they can face, but also the ideas, the actions, the innovative actions that citizens and other organizations are taking forward in order to implement the 2030 agenda and achieve the SDGs by 2030.
I think for me, my greatest concern, and this is probably what I can give as an advice to those who are here and those who are watching around the world, is if you go to the Agenda 2030, everybody in a place such as a conference such as this is talking about the goals. You know, you are in goal 1, goal 2, goal 17, goal whatever. But actually, I always tell them, go to the agenda. It's called Transformation Agenda 2030, and go to paragraph 7 up to paragraph 9 that lays out the vision of the kind of world we want. And every time I go to that vision, and it talks about the world and how we want to see it by 2030, it's a goal that excites me. It's a vision that every citizen, everywhere in the world, wants to be a part of. So for me, I keep on challenging the civil society. I keep on challenging young people. Let's not restrict ourselves to just the one paragraph, and I think that is paragraph 59, that talks about the SDG goals themselves. Let's go to the vision. Let's go to the mission. Let's go to what we want for our own planet. Let's go for what we want for our own people. I think for me, that's my first advice. The second advice is, let's sober up. No matter how much we have talked, there is development ultimately is about power, and power is about politics. So let us not shy away from getting engaged in power. Because when you look at the goals as they are right now, most of those goals are challenging fundamental structures that some people have used to benefit for several years now. If you look at issues of inequality, if you look at issues of where the resources are going, if you use at issues of exploitation, if you look at the gender issues, those are things that over the years have benefited a particular section of society. They don't want to deal with it. And we must rise up and challenge them. So development is politics. The SDG is about politics. I know that as NGOs, we like saying we are non-political, we are neutral, whatever. If you are non-political, then get out of development. Because ultimately, for you to confront power, there has to be, you have to get out onto the streets, challenge whatever, challenge the ideology, challenge whatever the principles. And so for me, that I see is the new wave that I'm beginning to see. I know that it's not very common among the traditional NGOs. We are used to projects, we are used to proposals, we are used to concept notes, and then we want to say, I want to deal with SDGs 5.2, you know, whatever that. But I'm thinking if we look at everything and saying we are going to confront the structures of poverty, we are going to confront the structures of resources, then we will have dealt with the 2030 agenda.
I think that is a great advice if we actually start looking at the holistic approach of the agenda, because we are not talking about just achieving gender equality and just focusing on it. We want to achieve sustainable development and all these things. We need to work on them together. We need to work in all SDGs together.
Exactly, and I know it is exciting to say that I'm working with children. But hold on a minute. Those children have a home. Those children have parents. Those children want to go to school. Those children want to make sure that they're not in poverty. Those children, so you can't come to me and tell me, you know, we only work with children. Then you don't understand how society works. You also can't come and tell me, no, we only work on sexual rights. But sexual rights are within the context of a culture. Sexual rights are within the context of a society. Sexual rights are within the context of a community. They're within the context of some politics. There is some issue of economic empowerment that has got an impact on sexual rights. So unless we come together and holistically look at the agenda from that perspective, we will still be caught up in the way that we are doing the MDGs, and we will not go very far.
So, taking in mind the advice you gave about, or to civil society organizations about start working and start involving in politics, Because, you know, if you are worried about the public, then you're going to start working.
I'm not asking everybody to run away from civil society and seek elective positions, but I'm just saying start getting engaged in power. Start engaging, because that's where decisions are made. If you're talking about policy, it's about power. If you're talking about budgeting, it's about power. You're talking about resources, it's about power. So let's get away from sitting at the back. Let's get into the kitchen. Let's confront the power. Yes.
Awesome. So I'm going to just start to wrap up now the interview, and I'm going to ask you 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what is the advice or maybe some ideas to start working in different constituencies to make the agenda not different that you can see here and at the Global Festival of Ideas? And if you can describe the Global Festival of Ideas in only 1 word, what would it be? Oh, that was actually 3 questions.
Okay. The most exciting thing for me here is that almost 98% of the faces here are new. Because every time I go to conferences, there are always these traditional faces you see, the people you saw in this meeting. So it is very exciting that there's a whole new generation of people who are rising up. But I'll talk about that later. I think for me, if you are asking me about how to work in the various sectors, I'll go back to something that we have been doing in Kenya. I come from Kenya. I know that we work in several countries in Africa, but there's some work that we do in Kenya. And I sat with some activists at the local level from a group which is called Bunge la Wananchi. Bunge la Wananchi is a Swahili word for the People's Parliament. And these are groups of activists that meet daily to debate the issues that face them. They have got their own speaker. They call themselves members of parliament and wherever. They don't get any funding from any donor. In fact, they don't even want any funding and wherever. And when they agree on an issue, they write a petition together and then they take it to the police. They take it to the people to the people who are in power. And for me, I see I see hope. When I see young people meeting at that local level, when I see those activists, I see hope. And I wish I could see a lot of that around the world. I know it is exciting to write policy positions. It's exciting to come to conferences like this. It's exciting to talk about what the UN is doing. But ultimately, it is what happens at the local level. It is what happens at the community level. Your ability to change your community is what will bring the realization of the SDGs. Now, for those of us who are the big guys here, the big suits, I can see lots of very nice suits here, that my challenge to all of us is, where needed, let's confront government. But where needed, let's support governments. I think many of us are caught up in the middle. You are either fighting government or you are either supporting government. I think there's a place for both. And if we are to work with the government, if we are to work wherever with the other actors, let's begin challenging them where they're wrong, but let's begin supporting them where they're right. There are a lot of governments that have got good intentions, but don't have certain capacities. When I look at this meeting, the amount of intelligence I see in a conference like this are things that most governments cannot afford. So let's go sit with governments. Let's get this intelligence work we have, give it to support whatever certain governments. And by governments, I don't just mean the southern governments. I am also talking about the governments in the north. I'm talking about the governments in Europe. I'm talking about confronting donors. Where there are some policies of donors that you don't like, confront it. When donors still want to push you to write small little projects, proposals, throw it away and tell them, no, the SDGs demands that we do more than just writing projects.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And I think we are about to close this amazing interview. And just 1 word. How did you define the
One word. Okay.
Yes, only one.
Okay.
How did you define the Global Festival of Ideas?
How do I define?
Yes, in 1 word.
People power.
People
That's
power.
what it is.
And that goes
Yes.
together, so it's like 1 word. Hashtag. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you can share your ideas with all the participants, and I invite you all to keep engaging, to keep networking in order to achieve the 2030 agenda by 2030. Thank you very much.
People power, thank you.
People power.